outstanding as we get ready for a brand new year of 2026. This is our HIP Spotlight YouTube live stream. And today we're very grateful to welcome Anthony J. Resta. Hello, Anthony.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
There you are out there in the City of Angels.
Yeah.
But you didn't start there. You started here on the East Coast.
Sure.
Tell us about your time in Massachusetts.
Well, I went to Berklee College of Music and um, lived in the Boston area from high school all the way up to 2012. And I had a recording studio in a big mill building there in Chelmsford called Studio Bopnik, and it was nearly 4,000 square feet. It was just this crazy museum of sound, and it was just a wonderful place. I spent 20 years almost to the day there before I decided to move to Los Angeles and become a smaller fish in a bigger pond.
And how was that transition?
Hell. I'm Canadian by nature, and I love the wilderness and camping and fishing, and so that was a big part of my life back in New England. I did a lot of striped bass fishing and bass rocks, in mornings before my sessions. And when we moved to Los Angeles, it's just a very hard place to get around. If you want to go to the dry cleaners and pick up some groceries and do like one other thing, it's like 3 hours. So fishing is like a 2-day event. So it really was a brutal change of lifestyle for me. And it wasn't until 2017. I spent about 4 or 5 years contemplating accidental drowning and things like that. And then I finally found this place in Laurel Canyon, which looks like you're in Maine here. Like you close the gate and it's all wilderness and mountains, and it feels like you could be in Booth Bay Harbor and you wouldn't know. So it doesn't resemble Los Angeles in any way, shape, or form. So I'm happy here. So I've been here now eight years, and it's a really cool George Augsburger designed studio. It has a real history. Howie Weinberg mastered a bunch of records here for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, and he went from a big room set up. He wanted to get to near field monitors, so he moved to a smaller facility up. There's 3 facilities here. And so I ended up taking this one over. So, some legendary records are mastered here. Mother's Milk by the Chili Peppers. I mean, just at a crazy, crazy amount. I think Howie's got, I don't know, he's got dozens and dozens of Grammys. He's a legendary mixer. So George Augsburger spent like almost 2 years building and designing this room. So the acoustics are incredible. So, I'm really lucked out. I love it here. It's been, it's different now since COVID. Not as many people actually come to sessions, and I do a ton of remote recordings. I've worked on several album projects with artists from different parts of the world. One in Austria, one recently in New Brunswick, Canada, and another one in Washington D.C. So there's a lot of remote collaboration these days. So that's pretty much the story.
Well, I know you are the poster kid for if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. You've been behind the board for quite some time, and though the landscape is changing, it was just recently that you came to the realization that you had music that you wanted to release under the moniker Anthony J. Resta.
That's right. I actually have had an alter ego for, I don't know, since the late 90s called Ajax Rayovac. And I used to release really very bizarre spoken word, all kinds of crazy stuff under that name, so I could kind of keep it separate from my production career. And then the last year and a half or so, I decided to start putting stuff out in my own name, and just kind of pursue letting people know I'm an artist myself. And it's funny, a lot of the younger clients, like, they heard the Guitar Man and they didn't even realize it wasn't my song. It's like it's a different generation. I learn a lot from young people, the way they make records, everything is different. It's a generational thing. There's a lot to learn from young people, and I'm very open minded that way. If you want your voice to sound like a porpoise underwater, you know, let's do it. I got to figure out how to get there. There's all those cuts that they do in pop music, and it's fun. It's endless. So I'm lucky to be able to do this. The last day job I had was 1985. Um, I was a bartender at the Burlington Marriott in Massachusetts for 5 years. And you know what? I even still have my employee of the month plaque
Very nice.
to remind
Very.
me. I don't take it for granted. I polished brass and did a lot of stuff like that. Behind the bar. I even bought my own plexiglass cleaner,
Mhm.
and nobody could figure out how I got rid of all the spots. It was a top secret. But that was it. So I've had 3+ decades, coming up on 4 decades of doing what I love. And what a journey it's been, up and down, and it's still not easy. It's like it's no cakewalk. It never has been, and it probably never will be. But it chooses you, Andy. We don't choose it, and you've been doing this almost as long as I have. You know, so
No,
that's
um, uh, you, as I, are very much keeping the human connection, that very important aspect of the music industry, alive and well. Can you talk to our uh, folks watching this transmission about how now more than ever the human connection is something that can't be overlooked?
yeah, that's a really involved big topic, and it's important. Um, I think there's certain connections that happen, visceral connections with how we interact with music, and um, a lot of it, the human factor is it's kind of hard to equate. There's the records we grew up on, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, they're full of imperfections, um, and a lot of that is charm. And I'm seeing more and more young people embracing imperfection. After many years of putting everything snapped to a grid and everything in perfect tune, I think a lot of music has become kind of predictable. I think there's a massive art to that, and I don't disqualify anybody that does that. And believe me, I do plenty of that myself. But I'm not one of these get off my lawn. It's like the old way, and everything new sucks. It's like I'm not like that. I think even AI has really incredible tools if you know how to use them. See, the prompts are going to come from somebody with if you have experience and you know what you're trying to get it to do, you can get it to do some incredible things. And how you manipulate it ultimately ends up whether it's going to be human or not. If you just push the button and there's one of the 7 million tracks that are coming out today on Suno. Look at what I just made. I mean, that's just pushing a button. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about collaboration, like push and pull, putting things together with people, and that human connection comes from, I think, people working together. And I think band chemistry, for example, guys playing in a room. I really feel like that never went out of style. It just, I mean, it's magical, and maybe you only keep 20% of that, but having that human connection in music, I think, is going to get more and more valuable. And I think it stands out more and more. Like, what's interesting is I have 6 kids, and I have some young kids from everywhere from 2 to 16, and it's funny how they can recognize AI music before I can. Oh, Papa, that's AI. And it's like, it fools me more than it fools them. And I find that really fascinating. I mean, they've grown up listening to everything from jazz, classical. My daughter's a virtuoso violinist. She's toured Europe, played Carnegie Hall. She's incredible. And she's got an unbelievable ear. And her ear kind of goes towards, she loves like late 70s punk rock, like the Misfits and M5 and all these bands that I never heard of. When I was her age, I was listening to Yes and Genesis. So I guess what we're getting to in a full circle way is, human interaction in music is not going anywhere, and the people that can really play and really make you feel something are going to keep doing that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for real musicians now. Of course, playing live and building a following. There's a company that I just did some stuff with called FanFlowy, FanFlowy, and they are using automation to get mailing lists and people together to follow your music, and they do it in a way where people are really involved in every step of it. And you might end up with you know 500 super fans, but it's better to have 500 super fans over a 2-year period than 1 million people that don't even know who you are on TikTok, and not one of them would show up to a gig. You know what I mean? So I think the whole industry is finding this weird place. Like, the labels have signed a lot of big TikTok artists and a lot of people that have had millions and millions of followers, but they can't get 150 people to a bar. And they don't have enough experience to be real performers. So, everybody has assets, and there's no right or wrong to any of this. I'm not being judgmental, but I think the human factor again comes from everything we've talked about up to now in this roundabout discussion that I've kind of hijacked.
It's it's very inspiring, Anthony. It's been said if you share your knowledge, it's the best way to achieve immortality. And people come to record with you. Certainly, they love the sound and the vibration of the room, but they're really coming because they like Anthony. And with your podcast, Studio Secrets A to Z,
Yep.
you have brought so many talented people to your transmission. Tell the folks about.
Yeah, it's been life changing. It started off as just kind of a fun hobby thing. I used to do like one episode a month, and then it was two a month, and now it's every week. And I've recently had Bob Ezrin, who produced Pink Floyd's The Wall, announced my 100th episode. He's going to be a guest, and it's really between Instagram and the podcast, sometimes we reach close to 1 million people a month, and I have these people on that tell stories that you're never going to hear anywhere because some of these guys don't do a lot of interviews to begin with, but I tend to ask not such shop worn questions. I try to get them to open up about their own passions and steer away from the real obvious questions. And give you an example, I had Michael Beinhorn, who produced Soundgarden, and amongst many others. But the Black Hole Sun is one of these songs that the sound of it has always baffled me. Just the depth and the thickness of the drums and everything about it. And he waxed rhapsodic about all of it for a good half an hour. And turns out that he had been involved in building a 2-inch 8-track tape machine. So the drums were recorded on 2-inch 8-track at uh, 15 IPS. No, 7.5 inches per second, which is insanely like low. But when you listen in headphones, you hear this girth on the drums that you go, oh my God, that's what that is. So that's what we call studio secrets. I'm trying to uncover mysteries and things that are exist out there, and with the guys that actually did it. And I was just so inspired by him. I have to get him back on. Um, he was just incredible. Like his stories were just amazing. He worked on like Rocket by Herbie Hancock. He was a teenager, when that hit the radio. So these guys have these incredible stories, and they've all had to reinvent themselves just like me. I mean, he does a lot of online consultations and stuff through his website, michaelbeinhorn.com, and he'll for a nominal fee, he'll help you figure out your arrangement. And like, these are the ways that we've had to adjust to, in the era where everybody and their dog is a producer and has a laptop and makes their own records in their bedroom. You to stay relevant, you got to do stuff. You got to change. So anyway, Studio Secrets. There's so many varying guests I've had. I have artists on there. I have engineers, producers, gear manufacturers. I recently had Joshua Heath Scott from JHS Pedals on, and what a fascinating guy he is. The things he's doing. Um, he came up with that not a clon pedal, which for $99 you can build your own clon, and it sounds like the $1,200 to $7,000 one. You know, and he sold thousands and thousands of them. And just incredible innovators. So yeah, I love those guys.
Well, speaking of young people, and when you go home in the evening, you've got young people. Uh, Before we talk about this just stunning music video that you have released, talk about the young woman in that video
Oh,
who
sure.
provides the violin.
Yeah, that's my daughter Milana. She started playing violin. I think she was about 3 or 4, and she excelled at it over the next several years. She's was with the Suzuki program, and she's at a very young age became really advanced, and she does like Juilliard level repertoire since 13 or so. She's just turned 16, and like I said, she's just remarkable and passionate, and she puts a lot of feeling into the notes, and uh, that's one thing that I try to emphasize with people. You can be technical and have and go and there's so many of these artists on Instagram that they play like 9 billion notes in 60 seconds, but what did you glean from those 9 million notes? That's what really matters. And she was taught at an early age. Her godfather is Nuno Betancourt, the guitarist of Extreme, and of course he's a world class musician, not just on guitar but piano and just real virtuoso. And when she was young, I have a video of her performing something for him when she was maybe 5 or 6, and he told her this wonderful story where he was a judge in a guitar composition in competition in Japan, and there was 3 finalists, and one guy was the fastest, most blazing guitarist he'd ever heard in his life and played like 9 billion notes, and everybody gave him a 10. But when it came to Nuno for his score, he said 2. He said, I didn't feel one thing from any of those 9 billion notes. And he told my daughter that story when she was about 5 years old. And it really did have an effect on her. And she plays with such a conviction and passion. She gets a sound out of a $2,000 violin that is more intense than a $50,000 violin from somebody who does not do that. So I mean, I'm in awe of her, and I'm the proud dad bragging here. But she plays all the violins in the Guitar Man, and she tracked them in about 20 minutes. She did several layers, and she's got better ears than I do. She'll be like, "Papa, the third note from the end is sharp." Just it's like I'm like, whatever, it's fine to me. But yeah, so she's incredible, and my other kids too. Like my Evo, he's a great pianist, plays perfect birdcage classical technique on piano, and Vlado's studying piano, and yeah, they do ballet. They're just really artistic, rounded kids, and they inspire me. They get into the studio, and I let them play with stuff. They make crazy sounds just like me. So it's a family affair.
And I'm sure there's some sibling rivalry. They see how well their siblings are doing, and they want to
Rise to the occasion. Yeah,
rise to the occasion.
yeah, and it can be it can be tough sometimes. Somebody's getting so much attention. My son though just played the Nutcracker Prince in the Nutcracker, and he's an incredible ballet dancer. He performed with the Santa Fe Ballet on the Nutcracker a few years ago. He loves dance. He was one of 26 kids or something to be chosen for the summer program for the Manhattan School of Ballet, full scholarship. He went there, and I mean, talk about world experiences for these kids at such a young age. It's just amazing. Here I am bragging, bragging, bragging.
No, it's beautiful.
And
I'm surmising that these children, they didn't get arm twisted into the musical world. It was just a part of their DNA.
yeah, it's osmosis too, and I can't take credit for it. Everybody goes on whenever my daughter, I post something of her playing a classical piece, and like I get all these comments like, "Oh, apple doesn't fall far from the tree," and it just makes my wife furious because honestly, the classical genes side is more her Russian side. My wife is, has a Russian Slavic background, and her mother has perfect pitch, and her grandfather was, I think, an opera singer. And I'm just a guy who bangs on stuff like a monkey, so I get way more credit than I deserve.
And was it your shared love of music that brought you together?
Yeah, we ended up producing. It's a really interesting story. We knew each other for 8 or 10 years before we actually ended up working together, and yeah, she's an incredible poet, musician, uh, artist. She's just phenomenal, and she does so many things so well. And we ended up working on an album, and neither of us ever imagined having children together. Never mind, even being married. It was just a very long, slow friendship um, that sort of came together over time. So yeah, it was unexpected, really. And when we got married, I said no kids. And she said, "Yeah, I agree." And then we ended up having 6 kids, 3 adopted and 3 natural kids. So anyway, it's the best part of life, really, family, without a doubt.
Well, it sounds like not only a talented artist and poet and creative, but also a talented mom.
Oh, I mean, my kids are homeschooled, and my daughter went to a private French school and was fluent in French by age 4, maybe. And then I realized I couldn't afford to put all these kids through fancy school like that. And it wasn't fair to just, so Andrea ended up homeschooling them, and they're all bilingual, and they're all, you know, learning lots of stuff. And she's an incredible teacher as well. So, homeschooling is a full time job, just the administrative side. Um, so yeah, it's a busy household.
Many musical creatives will spend a week recording an album, or if they're very blessed or have some backing or wealthy parents, they'll spend a month
Yep.
recording an album. One song, 1 year, The Guitar Man.
Yeah, that's a long story. It's something that I tried to do on a couple of other occasions, and it like the first time it started sounding like Neil Young, and I never was a big Neil Young fan growing up, and I just couldn't get my finger on exactly what I wanted it to be, and then the next part of that took a few different attempts with basic tracking, and wasn't happy with this. I wasn't happy. I can be a little bit like I don't want to say OCD, but like sometimes when you got something in your head that you've been wanting to do for so long, we're talking like since I was in the 8th grade. You know what I mean? So trying to live up to that, something that's that big to you, it's not easy. And I finally got through the tracking in several months, and then the mix part just had to be done again and again with different engineers until Bob St. John, who's down in Miami, he's incredible. We worked together on Duran Duran stuff and Collective Soul stuff, and he just had the right touch for what I was looking for. I was looking for that really 70s gooey analog outcome, and finally he ran it through a Fairchild 670, which has like 18 tubes in it in bypass, but those tubes just gave it this crazy girth. And I said, you know what? I don't care if it's too much bass. I don't care if it's not bright enough. I don't care. I'm done. And I just, after like 6 different mixes by different people, I just said, that's it. I don't want to listen to anything else. And that's what you hear now.
Well, to give some context to the folks tuning into this transmission, The Guitar Man. It was a single released by a band called Bread in 1972. Now, they had just enjoyed 2 years of massive success, not just in North America, but all around the world. I think that as the 70s were ushered in, and we might see Anthony nodding his head, there was an insatiable need for music that just made you feel good. And love songs. People wanted love songs. So all of a sudden, there's a brother sister team out of where Anthony lives putting hit after hit on the radio. And all of a sudden, we start hearing this guy, David Gates,
Yeah.
the voice, the voice, what Karen Carpenter was to that velvet female voice. David was the voice of us guys who wanted to get with the girls and feel love. And all of the songs were hits,
Yeah.
hit after hit after hit. And then there was a little lull, and all of a sudden, a song, it's not necessarily about love, it could be about the love of being a creative. But The Guitar Man, 1972, it was not their biggest hit, Anthony, but as a young man who obviously was first in line to buy Best of Bread because I knew it was going to be the makeout record of the 70s. If you were inviting your hopeful or soon to be or current girlfriend over when the parents are at work, yeah, the Best of Bread. Um,
Uh,
why would you gravitate so profoundly to this 1972 song?
well, I'm obviously quite old. I'm going to date myself, but I was in the eighth grade when it was a hit song, and I fell in love with it then. And I might as well tell a personal story. I had moved from Texas to New England, and in Texas, I had a really successful paper route with like 125 papers in an apartment building, and I made great money. I could buy vinyl records every week, and life was good. Then we moved to New England, and I got a paper route, and the houses were so far apart. I had like 12, and it took twice as long, and I was miserable. So I decided I was going to ride my bike back to Texas and get my old paper route back. So one fall morning, I packed up everything in a backpack and I budgeted 50 cents a day and 50 miles a day. It was going to take me a month to get back to Texas, and I was going to get my paper route back. And off I went into the down Boston Road in Westford, Massachusetts, and I had a little crackly radio with one of those mono plugs in it. And Guitar Man was coming on quite often, and that was like my theme song, you know. So that's how far back that was ingrained in my mind. And over the years, I contemplated it many, many times. And then something hit me last year. I just said, you know what, I got to just do it. You get to a certain age where you have this bucket list of things that you want to do in your life, and you see more sand in the bottom of the hourglass than in the top of the hourglass, and you're like, okay, I gotta make a move. So that's when it happened. And there's the whole story.
Absolute meticulous recreation of a classic song from our childhood. Tell the folks tuning in that, to get a guy like Tim Pierce, any of these people who are looking for big names on their record, you got
Yeah,
a rate sheet. You don't do that because Tim's a friend.
yeah. Well, Tim, we live in sort of in the similar neighborhood in Tarzana. I since moved to Encino, but like we were close for quite a few years, and Tim probably played on 100 songs for me um, over the past 10 years, and he's just a magical human being. His personality, and of course his musical touch and the way he plays the guitar is just like unheard of. And I play a lot of guitar, and a lot of times Tim would do the meat and potatoes, and and then I would do the frills and the weirder. I do the more of the Radiohead kind of strange atmospheric stuff. But together we were creating these really wonderful pastiches of sound, and we got really close as friends. We'd take walks together, and so yeah, it was a long, long process. And then he got away from doing session work and now just focuses on his YouTube channel and does really well with the educational side. And he kind of doesn't do many sessions now. And he does stuff for David Foster and he does stuff for me occasionally. But he came to me one time. Recently, it was an artist named Therese Curtello. She's really, really great. And I put out a song called "Unhappy" with her, and you guys got to check it out. It's one of my favorite productions, and it was one of these things I did in a day and a half or something, and I considered it a rough sketch, and I was going to take it to Tim and have him do his thing. And he sat down and he listened to the tracks. He said, "You know, Anthony, you're out of the closet as a guitar player." He goes, "This doesn't need anything. I know you like hanging out here, but this doesn't need anything." And of course, I was almost teary. It takes me 3 times as long to do what you know he would do in 2 hours. But anyway, so we still occasionally work together, but I've been doing more and more on my own. And I've got a new intern named Ari Pant who's doing some engineering and incredible guitar player. 10 times the guitar player I am. I have an interesting approach. It's very angular and very what's the word, out of the box. So it has a place, but it's not for everybody all the time. But anyway, that's how Tim. And when I showed him the track, he just said, I said, "Could you put a solo on this?" And he said, "Oh, sure, I'd love to." And what you hear is the very first take of the solo. And then he did like, I said, "That's it." I think it's on my Instagram channel. You can hear me like, I filmed me screaming, "That's it." And then we tried like 8 more, and he said, "Yeah, you're right, that was it." So, so yeah, I'm lucky to have Tim on there. He really brings a beautiful, and he did some of the fills and the slide in the intro. So yeah, he brings a lot to it.
Was your uh, vocal performance something that you um, were potentially anxious about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the greatest singer, and I wanted to get a certain feeling across, and it ended up happening fairly quickly, but it took me a lot of time to get up the chutzpah to actually sit down and do it. And there's an artist from New York that's coming to, I think it's around the NAMM show. They're playing, and it's a crackerjack band like Kenny Arnold, like crazy people, and they're like, "You have to come up and do the Guitar Man on the 21st of January." So I said yes, but I'm like scared to death. So I may chicken out at the last minute, but because I'm not a live performer, I'm a studio rat. I hang out here, but yeah, that was. I'm happy with the vocal, and it has its, you know, it tips its hat to David Gates without being too derivative. I think like, there's some Pink Floyd in there somewhere too, maybe.
It's very otherworldly. And when it came time to make the visual, I do think you closed your eyes and said, "This should be not only otherworldly, but otherworldly." How the hell did you do it?
Oh well, this I can't take credit for that. I'll tell you the story. There's an incredible director named Joe Rubenstein, and he was working on a movie for Collective Soul. It's a 25-year broad stroke biography of their entire career, and it's out now. You can get it on Amazon, and it's everywhere. iTunes, and it's a great movie. And Joe came here into my studio, and they interviewed me for several hours. I've worked on well over 50 songs of Collective Soul over the years. Starting around '96 and all the way up to 2000. I don't know, 14, 15, whatever. Ed and I worked on a lot of stuff, and they was kind enough to put me in. I have a few cameos in the movie, and so they were here filming, and Joe was the director, and got to the end of the day, and I said, "Hey, can I play you something I'm working on?" It had probably one of the earlier rough mixes of the Guitar Man, and I played it for him, and I sat here, and I was standing over there, and I looked, and he had a tear going down his cheek. He said, "Anthony, this is incredible." He says, "I have to make a film," and these guys have umbrellas like 20 feet tall and like all this crazy stuff. I'm like, "I can't afford you guys. I can't even think about that." So he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do the video if you'll play that weird Brian Eno guitar noise stuff that you do, ambient for people walking into my wedding reception for 45 minutes, and we'll do a trade." And that's the deal we made. And my daughter played violin, and we created our own style of music called ambient classical. She would play like Mozart and Bach and stuff, and I would just play weird, dreamy soundscapes behind her, and people loved it. And Joe was signed up. And honestly, the video is all him. I had nothing to do with any of that. He's him and his wife, uh, Kayla. They did the editing. They planned the shots. They did everything. I literally just stand here. That was my role.
But you made their wedding memorable?
Oh, and my daughter and I recorded a version of the Elvis hit, I Can't Stop Falling in Love with You. We did an ambient classical version for them, and we recorded it, and I sent it to them as a gift as well. I need to put that. It's on my Instagram somewhere. It came out great, but anyway, I'm shouting him out right now. So Joe, if he's listening, I hope he's listening. But
Uh, were you expecting all the accolades for this song and video? Because I know they just keep coming.
yeah, it's been surprising. It's a slow burn, but it's like to me, it doesn't matter about numbers. It's just some of the DMs I get, and even your reaction and the wonderful thing you said on the as a comment on my YouTube channel. That's all the reward I could ever really ask for. I'm not trying to be a rock star here. I'm just trying to show people that I can be creative too in a different way.
Hmm. Can we expect more?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. In fact, there might be another Bread song in the pike. A really established guitar guy that I know on Instagram said, "Hey, I've been messing with this one. This I don't want to give it away. It's another Bread hit, probably bigger than Guitar Man." He said, "Would you be up for producing and singing this and working with me on it?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I have some other stuff in the can. I think I sent you a track called "Seize the Day." My favorite movie is Pet Sounds. Yeah, not enough coffee. My favorite movie is Pet Sounds. Yeah, that sounds like a skit on Portlandia. Um, anyway, it's called Dead Poet Society, and the song is "Seize the Day." And I have an iconic model named Mosh who sings it, and it's the first time she ever sang a song in the studio, and it's absolutely incredible. It's probably one of my best productions, and it's a song I wrote. And so she's going to be doing a video, and we're going to be releasing that. So I'm, co-writing and working with. I just had a band here from Canada called Manic Boys and Girls Club. I hope they're listening. Incredible, a brother sister team. We did two tracks that just I can't even explain it. It's like, I mean, they're going to hate me if I say this, but it's like Cyndi Lauper and Queen together, and it explodes in the most giant way. This track, this single coming up. And actually, we had a dilemma about it because it was one of those songs. If you look at the waveform, it's tiny and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And today, in this world of instant gratification, people don't really have the patience to wait 3 minutes for a super huge climactic moment. I mean, it's like instant gratification, everything. So I called on my well, not dear friend, but somebody I'm getting to know, Bob Ezrin. He did some of the best radio edits of all time, with stuff from The Wall. And I told him my dilemma, and he says, well, it's simple. He said, you take an acapella and one or two elements from the biggest point in the song that states the name of the song, drops off, and then bang into the first verse. That way you tease people and let them know that if they hang around long enough, they're going to get whacked in the head again. And I mean, it seems like an obvious thing, right? But coming from him, of course, we did it, and it's gonna be out pretty soon. Um, it's a great track. So follow the Manic Boys and Girls Club on Instagram. Uh, they're great performers, but they were just here and we did a second track. Um, just love working with them. Yeah, I'm meeting all kinds of interesting people through social media. You know, so that was wonderful. What got us on that? I lost my train of thought.
No, just that we were talking about what's to come,
Okay,
and
yeah,
certainly Mosh has had a big impact here. I still have a couple of my staff that have yet to hear what you sent me,
okay.
but Manic Boys
And Girls Club.
Club
They're from
from
Toronto,
your home.
fellow
Yes.
Canadians.
So, um, how do the folks who have been watching and or discover you, how best to reach you, whether it's about your music or about your services? What's the best way, Anthony?
Well, I think Instagram's the easiest. My email's there. I have a link tree there that takes you to wherever you want to go. My website, the Studio Secrets website. There's a lot of ways to reach me, but I tend to get 800 spams a day, so I miss a lot of stuff in conventional email. So as you've learned from trying to get a hold of me, um, so I feel like direct messaging me on Instagram is probably the best way. And my profile is just Anthony.J.Resta. It's pretty easy to find. And
Mhm.
yeah, I get back to everybody. And on the website, we do one-on-one consultations for arranging, and uh, we do workshops on music production and sound design and all kinds of different stuff. So people can find me
Mhm.
at studiosecretsAtoZ.com.
Everybody who has watched how uh, grateful we are here to not only call Anthony J. a client, but also a friend for many, many years, and really inspiring in that it could be argued it's a young person's game. The music industry has seen so many changes, and they've all come so quick. But here's a guy who is still fighting the good fight and reinventing himself all along the way. So kudos and bravo to you, Anthony, for fighting the good fight.
Oh, thanks, man. We've got, I got some big things coming up. I just signed with Megatrend, which is a big Hollywood composer agency. And they're going to be, helping me move my career more towards the scoring side. But on the publishing side, I'm partnering with some people to build a one-stop shop, a sync licensing entity where artists can get, stuff that they do with me in positions to, you know, generate income in unconventional ways. I mean, sync business is still strong, and I've had a lot of success. I mean, I'm going to be building it more, and I'm going to put a team together to help me. But yeah, I really feel like there's so much opportunity in all cable TV and sports, and like there's just a million opportunities for good music. And I think real music that connects and sounds sonically wonderful and big and warm is going to grab somebody quicker than a Suno track that took 5 minutes. I mean, although there's some good ones up there too, but they put 7 million of those things out a day, and it's kind of flooding the market with kind of generic sound. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that I have a YouTube, not a YouTube, Spotify playlist people can find under my name, and there's I call it the cross country playlist. You can listen to 60 hours of music that I've produced and not repeat a song. So you could drive from Boston to Los Angeles and not repeat a song. And I'm looking to turn that into a landing site for music supervisors. And I'm a mile and a half from Sunset here, um, and I'm going to start devoting more of my time to building relationships in Hollywood and try not to be as much of a hermit as I have been in the past.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Anthony. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about Anthony, certainly you can reach out to him directly.
Yeah,
If you'd like to know more about the Guitar Man video and how you can give it the support, the attention that it deserves, you can reach out to me here. But really, we will be very, very excited to see what comes next, Anthony. Quite the debut here with the Guitar Man.
thank you so much, guys. It's been great to hang with you.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day, Anthony,
All
and
right.
terrific 2026.
Okay. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining.
See you. Bye.